Welcome back to World's Strongest Man Classic, an opportunity to go back to an age of BMX bikes, Miami Vice and the ZX Spectrum. Now the giants of 2009 will soon be doing battle here in Malta, but before we enter their world of meticulous training, engineered nutrition and long unpronounceable Eastern European names, let's head back to simpler times. In 1983, Jeff Capes won his first world title. In 1985, he was back to do battle with his great rival, Jean-Paul Sigmarsson. But, as the film says, there could be only one.
For 8 special men, the destination is Portugal. From the United States, Rick Grizzly Brown, all 26 stone of them. Powerlifter Jean-Pierre Broulois, France represented for the first time by a man who trains in Belgium. From Finland, Roger Ekstrom, who hates flying, but who would have walked there if they'd let him. From Canada, Tom McGee, who'd be good enough for the Mr. Universe contest. The Englishman, Jeff Capes, pining for his lost love, the title of the world's strongest man. The ex-footballer from America, George Hector, who gave up pumping opponents to pump iron. From Holland, Kees de Bruyne, the world super heavyweight powerlifting champion, and looks it. The title holder from Iceland, Jean-Paul Sigmarsson, who surprised the world by beating Capes last year. Lisbon Airport, and as 737 goes walkies. When you get 8 men who turn a huge aircraft into a poodle, they're treated with respect. As the airport authorities said, please, can we have our aircraft back? Because guys, if it's not paradise, then it's just surely around the corner. It takes an effort of mind to do anything strenuous in this picturesque spot. Stretching out on the sands is about as busy as any normal human would require to be. The Atlantic broods over Portugal and doesn't like to be ignored. But don't ignore the power of prayer if you want to swim in these waters. This is the tip of Europe's nose, the most westerly point on the continent. From here, the Portuguese found the lure of the sea quite irresistible. To them, ocean, horizon, ship were as fundamental as earth, wind and fire. Londorettes haven't yet reached Sintra, the quaint little town just inland. Narrow streets, trees in abundance, and a castle in the air. You can't but love the place. It's a kind of castle they kept the prisoner of Zenda in, except here, he might not have wanted to leave. This mini version of a castle is at the end of Cascais Beach, looking gently down on the beginning of the competition itself.
And this is the first event of the Daft Trucks Trophy, taking place only 50 yards away from one of the most delectable beaches in the whole of Europe. Unfortunately for the competitors, they don't have much time to admire the scenery. They're about to try and haul a truck like this. It's 7 tons in weight almost, and they're going to go down this course of 30 meters and try to do it in a limit of 90 seconds. The fastest gets the most points. The trucks, of course, are in neutral. The human beings, decidedly, in overdrive.
So, on the Cascais Esplanade, the first heat. Kees de Bruyne on the left. He favors a kind of sawn-off corset appliance against the harness of Sigmarsson. Now, with 7 tons hanging onto you like a tail, you've got to be fussy about detail, or else you're going to end up with an oddly shaped spine. Now, Sigmarsson is expected to do reasonably well in this one, but that seems like a very timid start. That's surprising. Well, look at Case by comparison, finding that almost exhilarating. He's a powerlifter, of course, and he's trained to utilize his body in an explosive way. Well, that mix of crawl and semi-stoop might look slightly erratic, but that time can't be ignored. 42.2. Oh, meanwhile, it looks like John Paul's forgotten to take off his handbrake. That's a strangely sluggish performance. Change of air, maybe. Oh, that stands for disgruntled Reykjavik.
Well, that's the first event, and you haven't done as well as you would like to, but what does it mean to be the world's strongest man, and would you like to continue to be that?
For a competition like this one, it means to be strong and fit. You have to do some running and lifting, throwing. You have to be a superman.
Well, nobody would argue with that, not least the next 2 men. Tom McGee, the pro wrestler from Vancouver, and Roger Ekstrom, the powerlifter from Finland.
On your marks and get ready.
Some of the competitors thought there might have been something wrong with that lorry on the right after the first pull. But we shall see. Doesn't seem much wrong with it now. Now, this is how it should be done. The center of gravity close to the ground, simulating the action of the tiger. But Roger Ekstrom's technique looks like 19th century Frankenstein. McGee's previous experience in this event is now showing as he lunges at the line in 41.6. He's in front. Oh, it's been too much for Ekstrom, though. He didn't apply himself the right way, and accordingly he suffered. I wondered if Tom McGee's biggest motivation came from simply wanting the title.
Possibly. But a lot of it's just thinking about the money, really.
And that keeps you going.
Yeah.
Well, there's 3,000 pounds at stake as Grizzly shapes up looking like some new kind of American missile. His opponent, Jeff Capes, is in a mood you might describe as keenly determined. That means he's going to give his all from the start. Oh, and it is a great start by the Englishman. Look at that nose, down like a bloodhound on a hunt. Oh, Grizzly, by contrast, looks as if he's struggling to get free of the lorry, not just pull it. That's an astonishing performance by Capes. 30.7, way out in front. Well, in spite of having a 3-stone advantage over Capes, Grizzly, the pro strongman from Northern California, simply cannot generate the pace. And is he glad that's over? Well, Jeff's time is going to take some beating, and you get the impression he had deliberately psyched himself up for it.
Is it in fact a benefit to be angry?
Well, it helps, I think. You know, if you're a boxer and go into a ring happy and want to wave at your mother, that's another thing. But if you want to go in and kill the bloke, you've got to use that adrenaline, killer instinct, the venomous sort of attitude to really sting it.
So in a sense you put technique...
Total effort.
Well, total effort.
Yeah.
Technique was well down the priorities then?
No, I think my technique is pretty standard over the last 10 years. And it's just a question of applying all the force and aggression as I possibly could muster to assert position. I hope, well, I don't know the times yet.
Well, yours are the fastest at the moment.
Okay, so... you know, I've got a couple of week events in this championships, and
so this has got to be good.
Well, I had to have at least a good start.
The last heat and Jean-Pierre Broulois' first ever event in this contest. His opponent, the other American, George Hector. He could represent Capes' biggest threat at this event.
And get set.
Now remember, Hector on the left is a champion powerlift, and he looks very well proportioned and suited to this task. He started very impressively, but he's got to beat 30.7. Broulois is being left well behind. Oh, Hector's putting everything into it, but his time isn't going to be good enough. 38.1, that's second, well behind Capes. Broulois is struggling, but he's the lightest competitor at 17 stone, and bodyweight plays a big part in this event. Now he's blown a gasket, and the breakdown van is heading his way. That means signing off time.
Well, how did you intend approaching this event?
Well, I watched the other competitors, Tom McGee, the ones that did very well, tried to simulate their technique. I was fortunate in that being new, I didn't have an idea what to do. And then being in the last heat, I could watch them try and duplicate what the successful people have done, Capes and McGee.
And that makes very pleasant reading for Jeff Capes. There he is, where he likes and is accustomed to being at the top. But with 7 punishing events to go, he's going to have his work cut out, staying where he is.
Well, after watching that, I'm sure you realize how important recovery rate is. If you don't, just have a look at this here. Now, this is what you might call a Portuguese breakdown, obstructing not the road, but the path of the competitors, each of whom is going to be asked to lift this old cart from this end. Weighted down, as it is picturesquely enough, with these port casks filled, would you believe, with lead and sand, as nothing sacred. And this event only underlines how important it was for mankind to invent the jack.
Each man is allowed a maximum of 6 lifts, and they've all been successful at 385 kilos. There's only Grizzly left to attempt 405 kilos. But before he tried it, I asked him how he'd come by that name.
Well, I was a little kid. My dad named me Bear because I look like a little honey bear. But when I won the U.S. Heavyweight Championship, I had to change it around to Grizzly because Bear sounded too passive. And a grizzly is the most ferocious animal on the North American continent, and that I am.
Well, they couldn't call you honey bear.
No. I don't look too sweet.
But you know, he's really to everybody's taste so long as you keep out of his way in the ring. When he does them over in wrestling, they need a panel beater to put them back into shape. But it's concentration now as he prepares for his 6th and final lift. The target, 405 kilos, or put another way, 893 pounds.
You really snort at it, don't you?
I love it. I love to snort. Love to growl. It's in my nature.
Don't be confused by the scowls. It's their way of expressing polite satisfaction. Jean-Pierre Broulois at 425 kilos. Ah, sacre bleu. In his company, even a 17.5 stone man can look like a little boy lost. Jeffrey Capes. Now, he always approaches this task like a man about to lapse into meditation. He's attempting 445 kilos, or 981 pounds, in his 5th lift. They bind his hands to the bar for a better grip. Well, that way they can safely slap you in the face and get the blood boiling. Well, you can hear from that he's doing better than even some of his admirers thought he would in this event. Now for powerlifter Roger Ekstrom. More weight's been added, and he's attempting 465 kilos, 1,025 pounds. Oh, it's a strain, but he manages it. Happier now after what that truck did to him.
Roger Ekstrom has had 6 good lifts.
The powerlifters might in fact be very surprised at how well this man, Jeff Capes, is performing. He's decided to go for his 6th and final lift at 475 kilos, 1,047 pounds. Now he knows that if he can get this, he'll be guaranteed 4th place.
Right back. Use your head. Come on, big head and legs. Roll over your head. Roll!
Oh, that's a defiant shout against all these people who thought he was over the hill. Canadian Tom McGee psyching himself up as he prepares to lift 485 kilos.
Tom McGee.
Now, to be fair, Tom's been complaining of stomach pains, but he's carrying on.
You gotta have it, T. Get on now. Get on now. Ah!
No, the soliloquy hasn't helped. He's finished, and he knows it. There are 3 left now. And firstly, Kees de Bruyt. He has 90 seconds to try to lift 485 kilos.
For you. Up!
Pistol lift. Ready.
Go, Kees! Alles eruit! Laat die grote rug werken!
Oh yes, there was a great deal to spare there, and you get the impression there's a lot left in that man yet. Now the champion, the man with a built-in megaphone, John Paul Sigmarsson.
Of Iceland!
Some very brave person in the crowd has actually called him an Eskimo. And he's heard that remark all right.
I'm not an Eskimo, I'm a Viking!
If he hadn't been engaged in something else, you might have put the record straight another way. But to the matter in hand, a small matter of 495 kilos. Oh, the definitive look of triumph on that face. It's successful. George Hector from Maryland. He was beaten recently by Kees de Vroet in the powerlifting championships in Helsinki, and the possibility of revenge might stiffen the sinews. The target, 515 kilos.
Come on, Big George! Come on, Big George!
He accomplished that without any real distress. John Paul again. 515 kilos of sand are now packed onto that poor cart, which looks as if it might never recover from the experience. He was also a bouncer in a disco in Iceland, and we have to assume it was a very well-behaved disco indeed. The weight has changed, the Dutchman hasn't. His stolid, dour approach makes him at times appear mechanical, but also very self-assured. He has a cruel and sadistic 525 kilos, 1,157.5 pounds to cope with here. I think he took some pleasure out of that. George Hector has opted to miss out that weight and go for an incredible 555 kilos. It's a very bold ploy, but if it comes unstuck, he'll obviously lose out on points.
Come on, George!
Well, it's clearly well beyond him, and George's gamble hasn't paid off. Muscles and sympathy. What a great incentive now for the Icelander. He did badly in the truck pull, so he now stands a chance of scoring maximum points if he gets 555 kilos.
I'm gonna eat you! Lift your head.
First aid for the port cask, and second equal place for John Paul Sigmarsson. But it would have been a surprise, though, if Kees de Vroet hadn't won that one. He takes a maximum 8 points. Hector and Sigmarsson a point and a half behind, but very significantly, Capes hasn't allowed them to go too far away. These 5 points will come in very handy. And overall, Hector has edged out in front by that fraction. Capes and de Vroet are linked together, but Capes' great rival Sigmarsson is an unusual 4.5 points adrift of him.
You want variety? Well, we've certainly got it. You've seen great strength in the powerlifting. Now we have strength and mobility and speed all in the second barrel race, where the athlete takes the 80-kilo bag of sand, puts it on the shoulder, goes down the 50-meter course to the wheelbarrow and goes back for more. Now, this makes tremendous demands on the heart and lung, and therefore it is no softening of the event to have this pure oxygen. So do not be at all surprised if even the biggest men eventually have to do this.
And so in perfect weather, we await the first heat between Tom McGee against Grizzly Brown.
And get set. Stand back.
Oh, McGee started as if he's come out of the blocks. Grizzly seems to be playing the marathon game, pacing himself. Well, I don't know about yours, but our Coleman never went that fast. And no time to converse as they pass each other in opposite directions. Grizzly's huge girth simply isn't meant for such speed. Well, the man's looking white around the gills, but Tom's virus hasn't prevented him from turning in a reasonable time, 42.6. Do you think Grizzly's feeling it out there? No, I'm a Viking, he says. Well, in spite of that instant conversion, I wondered if he felt his bulk was regarded by some folk as freakish.
I'm proud to be a freak. I'm different. I don't want to be like anybody else. I don't want to be a pencil neck. I don't want to walk around being 165. It's good to be a little different, you know? It adds a little spice to life.
Do you feel safer now because you're big and strong?
No, I wouldn't say I was safer. I say cosmetically, appearance-wise, you wouldn't want to mess with me. Now, on the street, like I said, I'm the U.S. heavyweight wrestling champion. I'm nobody to fool with. But all this muscle, this 65-inch chest, these 25-inch arms, they can't stop a bullet, you see. So I'm not invincible, and I'm not a dummy. But don't push me, you know. But I like you, Archie.
Thank heaven for that.
All right.
Now these two will really be trying. George Hector on the left and Jeff Capes on the right. Jeff's speed and agility should count heavily in his favor. Well, he's off at an amazing pace, totally outstripping his opponent. Look at these big, huge legs gobbling up the distance, and this is very fast indeed. But now for this trying return journey. Well, this is more like a bayonet charge than a barrel push. Jeff Capes capturing Cascais single-handed in 29.3. Meanwhile, Hector grimly carries on, but he's beginning to look wobbly, and that is a fatal mistake, which will cost him a second or two. He's finishing in 54.5, which is well down the list. So Jeff's incredible pace for such a big man has given the rest a target of 29.3. Sigmarsson on the left is the man to watch. He feels he can match Capes for speed, and doesn't it look like it immediately? Like Jeff, he's off to a very fast start. He's leaving Brulwa behind, but doesn't want to muff the transfer, though. Now, a clear dash to the line. But it looks as if his time is outside Capes. Indeed, it's 32.4. 3 seconds behind Capes. Brulwa has struggled again, and his aim is to beat 50 seconds, but it doesn't look like he'll do it. Brulwa est arrivé, but it isn't vintage stuff. The last two, De Vroet on the left, Ekstrom on the right. The Dutchman has already made an impact, the Finn hardly any. But this is a much better performance by Ekstrom. He's tall, rangy, and his legs go right up to the armpits. And it's all smoother for him now. Well, this is clearly the closest race we've had, and the times are good, very good indeed. It's very close. Ekstrom inching it in front in 33.7, but he hasn't beaten Capes. So what was that about oxygen? Thus are the mighty nourished. Well, that win by Capes gives him another 8 points and his second victory. Roger Ekstrom badly needed that third place, but the always dangerous John Paul Sigmarsson is beginning to get into his stride.
Just over 32 seconds, is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Stop showing your biceps.
Yeah. Well, this man beside you, both of you are very close now. Are you beginning to get a bit edgy about that?
Yeah, I had a very bad start, but I think a bad start is a good luck for me.
Even giving this man, Mr. Capes, a start like that.
But last year I hurt the lion.
And when a lion gets hurt, yeah, he comes back harder, and he's got to kill the lion before he's less dangerous.
Well, the line is confidently in front at the moment. The ever-steady Kees de Vroet is second, and significantly John Paul Sigmarsson has moved up to third place. But Jeff's 3-point lead is a useful buffer for any mishap that may occur later on.
Well, as you can probably see, we're surrounded by bright, shining faces making a bit of a din. It's late afternoon, the sunshine is absolutely splendid yet, and no wonder there's expectancy, because I think the next event promises to be rather special. You see, this is a typical small Portuguese fishing boat, and this is a typical Portuguese fisherman, Jose Luis. Jose and his boat are about to make a special trip, not out to sea, but into dry land up this steep ramp. Jose usually drags his boat up in the company with another 8 Portuguese fishermen. But guess who's dragging it up this time? That's right, the competitors, except that they're doing it solo.
Grizzly, like the others, will have a limit of 2 minutes to pull the prow of the boat over the finishing line. It weighs approximately 235 kilos, and he's got to pull it 12 meters. Well, this giant, using only his little finger, has actually pressed a man overhead weighing 11.5 stone. But he's finding it difficult to transfer these abilities to an entirely different sort of challenge. He's a bit like a man struggling for the first time with a foreign language. But he's not alien to the Portuguese. His fan club has no constitution, they simply turn up and love him. George Hector. The gradient he looks down is 1 in 6, and at this stage I'm sure it looks even steeper than that. And George is about to meet Luis, but how soon remains to be seen. Well, he's developed a very smooth rhythm, and that is a must for a continuous pull. But it's the last few feet which seem to rip the arms from the sockets. Time 28.9. And with this going on, the Skylark out there in the bay isn't doing much business. Jean-Pierre from Lille. Now, he has no English, but the word he should learn now is help. He's been overawed by the others so far, but he's learning all the time. This is the first time he's entered the competition, and next year he'll be a much wiser and stronger man. While he's straining all the way, it helps to have good, firm teeth to gnash on when you're doing this sort of thing. And his time, looking at the watch, is coming up to 38.9, 10 seconds behind Hector, but the crowd recognize a trier when they see one. And now, for your delectation, all the world's a stage to John Paul. You get the impression that if he didn't have an audience, he'd rather play chess. Well, he's obviously done this before. Which Icelander hasn't? It's a firm, steady, remorseless pull, invisibly faster than any of the others. This is a crucial bit now. Straining at it as well, but confidently so. And it's coming up to the finish. It's 20.1, and that puts him well in the lead. That's a triumphant shout that the crowd are now accustomed to. It's time for a lap of honor. You get the impression he's modestly satisfied with that. And now for the contrast. Kees de Vroet, a very serious man. Somehow you get the impression he would smile only after a local anesthetic. But he doesn't mess about, and this is looking good. Well, the cheeks are out blowing, the tongue is out, he's biting hard, and he's finished, yes, in 27.8. Now that leaves him way behind Sigmarsson, but he's in second place at the moment. Now to Roger Ekstrom. He began to show form in the previous event, so we shall soon see if that was a flash in the pan. The big man is finished by birth, but lives in and competes for Sweden, but bemoans the fact that his country doesn't properly recognize his achievements, which include 4 powerlifting titles. So he wants to put himself on the map through this event, and that time of 25.4 will help his cause because it pushes de Vroet back into third place. Now then, who's she got eyes for? The bodybuilder with a profile of a choir boy. But Tom McGee's muscles aren't there merely for decoration, as he's now willing to demonstrate. Alas, the lad has been suffering from that virus, and while the spirit is willing, the flesh is distinctly weaker than it ought to be. He really is going to the limits. That last pull, somebody giving him support in the crowd. Pull harder, Tom. He's done it. He's finished 44.3. And I can assure you it's a virus and not the local vino collapso that's made him like that.
Next competitor is Jeff Capes of England.
Jeff's versatility in the application of his strength has been the envy of his rivals over the years, so that 16.5-foot fishing boat could be in for a quick trip. He has to beat Sigmundsson's 20.1. And at the moment he's making that rope look like a piece of string and the boat like a toy. And that is approaching a very fast time, yes. Phenomenal, 19.9. And I wonder if Jeff realized just how quick he was there. Looking round for some confirmation. Oh, he's surprised. And over that profile of surprise are the results. It's Cape's third outright win, but yet again, Sigmundsson is just in behind him with Ekstrom picking up another third place. But it did occur to me that with all these extraordinary demands being made on the body, was there not a persistent fear of injury?
I think you've really got to go back from my athletic career. I mean, don't forget, I've been competing since I was 6 years old. I'm now 36 years old. And I've been at it for 30 years. And apart from the obvious niggle, muscle pull and such like, I haven't really been injured at all. I've been very, very lucky, touch wood. And, you know, the guys know what it's all about. They know what they're doing. They're the best in the business. And if you do know what you're doing, then there's no problems at all.
A glittering end to the afternoon. That 5.5 points gap is looking quite unassailable at this stage, but you can never discount the younger man in second place. But there's not much time to reflect before the next event of the evening.
As not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls quite obviously for the 8 gentlemen who are about to perform other feats of strength in front of this attractive town hall. This is called the bell hold, each bell weighing 12.5 kilograms. Now, we've already observed some pain in some of the events previous to this, but nothing so acute as you're now about to observe. What kind of pain? Well, supposing you're on a family holiday, lifting suitcases, their arms almost falling off, and the wife says, hold them out flat until I powder my nose. That, I think, is the pain of the bell hold.
Hector first.
Go!
Now, what you have to watch for here are little telltale tremors along the arms. That shows the start of the weakening. The arms must not fall below the starting level. And trying to keep that level is what very quickly induces the pain. The competition record is 58.5. Hector is beginning to quiver and to struggle.
Down!
Down it goes at 45.9. I think he's relieved it's all over. Now, this is the event which Jeff Capes fears more than any. An old shoulder injury has weakened his capacity to keep his left arm horizontal. He knows he'll be in for painful seconds. Now listen to the coaxing voices of his supporters. Jeff seems to have placed his mind on another plane. Left arm holding well, but the right one isn't, unfortunately. It's over. It doesn't like that time at all. 22.2. He felt perhaps he could squeeze a little bit more out of it. He was always worried by that event. The sound of the Viking. He certainly varies his warm-ups, but it always gets the crowd on his side, and he's a character who needs that to do really well.
Go!
The bells, watch them. He has them well steadied at the moment, and he's biting deeply into the time. He's hiding that suffering well. But I think we're just beginning to see the signs of collapse. Yes. It's down, and nevertheless, a new championship record, 58.6. Over to you, John Paul. What do you think of him so far, Jeff? Kies de Bruyne. Now, if powerlifting means anything at all, it means powerful arms and shoulders, and he is a world champion, so he ought to be able to hold out here. His very impassive nature breeds deep concentration. Remember, the weight of the bell at the end of each arm, 27 pounds. And he simply cannot hold back the anguish, even though his trainer's urging him on. But it's 62.2. He's taken the lead. And now the Californian who's put a smile on the competition, the gentle giant. Grizzly's been privately upset that he hasn't really given a true account of himself. But with these arms, which look as though they've been tenderly packed with iron filings, anything might be possible for him. The arms are holding fast, but he's now calling on reserves of will, and the vocal cords give assistance. Oh, look at the jutting chin. He's a stare. And I think he's staying long enough to win. Yes. 64.8. The Bears back in business. Oh, they love him. Well, it's been a mini disaster for Capes at the bottom of the class with only 1 point. You won't be happy with that, but Grizzly can certainly call it his night.
You were really feeling pain there. I could see it in your face.
Well, John Paul said it was like an arm wrestler's pain. It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. And
so didn't you feel it right down the side of the body there? You can see your body trembling.
Down the side. Well, fat people jiggle when they get tired, Jack. But I tell you something. I feel like the prettiest fat man in the world right now.
Well, you know, there's a good feel about this tournament. They all want to win, but not to step over anybody to do so.
Well, I think there's a hell of a camaraderie among the guys. I mean, as I said before, these are new guys. I've never met them before, but there's already a family sort of occasion between us, and we're all supporting each other because we feel, you know, our place in sport is there to stay.
Okay, how do you face it tomorrow then? I mean, you've gone full blast, it seems to me, except perhaps in the power.
With Case DeBrook at 30, Jeff Capes at 30, John Paul Sigmarsson at 29, George Hector at 23.5, and 3 events to go.
Makes a marvellous final day.
I think so. I want to bet on it.
Well, not surprisingly, as only half a point now separates the first 3. Time for them perhaps to put their feet up for a rest. Well, Cascais doesn't do that, though. If it did, nobody in the area would eat fish. This is part market, part cathedral, for the Portuguese worship their fish as the principal sustenance. They're not just delicacies, but a veritable treasure. And I doubt very much if even Grizzly would come off best in haggling with this lady. Her tic-tacs are like karate chops. The Portuguese are charming people, but you mustn't rush them. In Spain, it's always mañana, mañana. In Portugal, that can be considered indecent haste. But the following morning, everybody was on time.
Well, I'm standing beside some of the most famous kinds of casks in the world. Port cask. This smaller one, 80. This one, 120 kilos. You can get enough port in here to give the whole of London a hangover for a week. And the competitors are going to be asked in this next event to lift them from the ground straight above their heads. And everybody is saying that if Jeff Capes does well in this event, he could go on and win the title. Because these are filled with sand and water. And for a lifter, compared to port, that's a much more lethal cocktail.
But I wonder if the men really relaxed the previous evening.
Did you worry about it last night at all?
Yeah, but you can't let that bother. What's happened's happened, and you got to come into each event with a fresh attitude and try and do the very best you can, and hope that the people ahead of you don't have that good a time, and that you can, you know, do better than they can, or at least stay even so you don't fall farther and farther behind.
As you can see there, the Frenchman failed at 100 kilos, and Roger Ekstrom surprisingly at 110. Now we're at 115, or 253 pounds. The grip is all important. They haven't had much opportunity to practice with the cast, so they're faced with this awkward and unyielding shape. Even the best of them will find these lifts a problem.
George!
Well, now follows the difficult bit. He's got to get these arms up straight and locked. Not quite. It's the shape that's so awkward. That's it. Once he got it up there and steadied it, it wasn't much of a problem. Not showing too much strain.
Come on!
John Paul. Now, he began to look good again late yesterday. Has the overnight rest helped this man?
Lock your arm! Lock your arm! Down!
Well, the referee slightly surprised him by asking for a straighter arm. But Sigmarsson truly had no real problems there. That little girl looks utterly bewildered. De Vroet. He should treat the weight with contempt, but perhaps not the shape. Well, he made it look as if the cask was entirely empty. Don't be fooled by that look. He's happy at his work. From Vancouver, British Columbia, Tom McGee. He hasn't shrugged off that debilitating virus. He still looks very pale and drawn, but nobody can talk him out of carrying on, and despite all, that is a clean effort. But one wonders just how long he can go on. Grizzly has a problem with this one, his waistline. Bending is more an expedition than an exercise to him.
Come on, Grizzly!
Oh, he's gone at it much too quickly. Remember, there is a time limit of 90 seconds to a lift. Now he's got it. How does he feel about that one? That's the quote of the week. Capesy. The big man's dignity was slightly mauled by his failure in the bell hold. But by the look on his face, he's going to eradicate the memory right now. And how? 253 pounds easily tamed. 6 left in, but a very big problem to follow.
Well, Grizzly, obviously everybody's a bit concerned because we're now up to the cask of 120 kilos and the sheer size is causing a bit of apprehension.
Well, I don't know, but I'm looking at it and I'm wondering if I'm going to try it out. It's a little awkward. I got 2 more events left to save myself for the swingle tree and the lobster pot. But looking at that, if a couple of guys get for me, you know, my athletic pride, I'll give it a shot, but it looks very awkward.
Awkward and extremely heavy, 120 kilos. And you've got to take what Grizzly says seriously. They do have a major problem.
Come on, George! Let's go, big guy!
Well, it's now beginning to look more like a wrestling match than a lift. I'm beginning to think even a forklift truck would beat a retreat from this. No, it simply won't go. But there's no disgrace in that. It was the shape that beat him. However, George is an experienced lifter, so does he think it's at all possible for anyone to lift him?
John Paul or Jeff may be able to do it, Tom, but it's just too big for me.
Yeah.
If I got it, the weight is not a consequence.
Yeah.
When it's distributed like that, I can get it on my knees, but I can't do anything under it to put it over your head.
Do you think it might have been fairer to have had an increased weight in the smaller cask?
But they won't contain it. The weights they're putting inside, they won't contain it. They need a much denser material.
Well, let's have a look at this one. Now, what's he trying to do, George?
Well, he's going to have to get it to his chest first. He may be able... it won't be easy for whoever does it, but...
Yes!
All right.
He's going to roll off it. He's rolling off it a bit.
He can do it, he can do it.
He seems to have mastered that wide hold. It's almost there now. The stretch and hold the balance all in the one.
Well, he came a lot closer than I did.
Good again.
Tell him, John Paul!
No, even for a Viking, it's beyond mastery.
Oh, well.
There was almost an indignant look on his face.
All right!
He wasn't all that far away from maximum points, but his admirers can forgive the odd lapse. Jeff can't be too confident after having watched John Paul. Now, he's going to have to remember that there are 2 other events to come. He doesn't want to overdo it and get nothing out of this.
Come on, Jeff.
It really is a monumental effort. He's not going to give up easily. Now, what's happened here? It looks as if the rim of the barrel has bitten into his bicep. You can go off port cask quite quickly, you know. The doctor will look at his arm. Let's hope it's not too badly injured. So the result of that tortuous exercise means that we have 6 men sharing first place. But trying to lift that barrel was a Herculean task. Does Jeff regret the amount of energy he must have expended?
In strategic terms, I think you must live to fight those next 2 events. Because if you look at it, I think there were 6 of us shared equal points. So basically, we're on scratch again as we was last night.
And in a sense, that's not too for you, is it?
In a sense, no, but it'll be very interesting in the last 2 events.
The organisers couldn't have arranged a better finish than this. We'll have 2 more events in the silky Portuguese afternoon to enjoy before we know who the world's strongest man is going to be.
What you're now about to see in this tiny little part of Portugal is a very old Scottish sport, and Scotsman David Webster, who's the referee, is going to demonstrate it with me now. It comes from the old farmhouses in the northeast, in which in the winter the farmers would sit like that and test each other's strength. And one would try to pull the other from his seat just like that. David, of course, isn't trying. How could he against me? The competitors are trying. It's the only event in which they are in direct contact with one another.
Are the men, I wonder, as placid about this as Cascais Bay?
I should think, now time will tell, because I've never done it before, I should think a tall person with very powerful hips, Jeff Capes, should win. It would be my pick.
Oh, good old George. Well, we'll see.
You win, you buy my boy a shirt, I win, I buy your boy. All right?
The irrepressible pair, Grizzly and John Paul. The formal grip is one hand over the bar, the other under. Fierce looks are optional. Well, body weight, and in Grizzly's case, 26 stone of it will play a big part in this contest. But that's a pleased bear. After all, it isn't every day you get one over on John Paul and get away with it. That pair are really lapping this up. In the first series of bouts, only one pull is required. McGee and Ekstrom face each other for 7th and 8th place. The Finn wins comfortably and collects himself 2 points. Taking up position, Hector and Broulois. The American distinctly favourite to win 5th place. And very promptly proves it, although he doesn't like the 3-point landing. In the round-robin series of bouts, each one has a chance of coming back after a poor start, like John Paul, who, despite his first defeat, has an opportunity to get 3rd place. Which he does against a surprise De Vroet, and that could be costly for the Dutchman. The final, California against Lincolnshire, the best of 3 pools. Capes whipping the bar quick. Grizzly doesn't know what happened to him. Capes on up. Well, Grizzly does have another chance, and John Paul is turned unpaid cheerleader. Oh, there's no stopping kicks now. That was simple like taking toffee off a child. It's his fourth victory, and the big man knows now he's poised to regain that much coveted title. He's edged further away from the Icelander and the Dutchman. The overall position with just one event to go is a very useful lead, but far from impregnable, because what now follows is that which could break the best of them.
We've been dealing with athletes who are obviously highly fit, highly disciplined, and who spend a great deal of their time devoted to ensuring that their body fitness is almost perfection. Now that makes them highly competitive. We've seen that. But what has shone through as warmly as this Portuguese sun has been their humanity. I don't think I've ever experienced such a spirit of cooperation between such a tightly knit bunch of athletes ever before. But no cooperation on this next event, the Lobster Pot Race, weighing 25 kilograms, packed with stones, and what the athletes call, affectionately, the killer event.
This particular form of torture consists of running up the steep ramp from the boat to the lorry 30 meters away with 10 pots. You will observe that Grizzly has turned tourist. This most amiable of men has decided he's enjoying life far too much to try to drag any more speed out of that 26.5 stone torso of his. So why not just keep Tom McGee company? To see how stylish Californians enjoy a walk in the sun. If McGee has heard of the tortoise and hare story, he cares not a jot for the moral. Because the bear is content to let folks see how 26.5 stone might handicap you when it comes to slopes and lobster pots and speed. But as a lovable human being, not one jot. McGee could turn out to be a very important man in this if his time is fast, which it now promises to be. But he's finding out the nature of the beast. The hill and the lobster pots are beginning to take their toll. That initial drive's gone. He and his virus are struggling the last few spiteful yards. But that time of 2 minutes 3 seconds could set Capes a problem if he fails to reach his true form. And it's a brave effort from the Canadian. Perhaps Grizzly thinks he should now audition for Superman 4. Kees de Vroet and George Hector have decided on an entirely new tactic. What they're doing is assembling the lobster pots at different levels on the ramp before they fill the lorry. Different, but I wonder if it's really all that effective. There's no rule against it, only the time is. Look at that pile he's got to put up with. And they're not really making any great impression. One more last heave from de Vroet. Up it goes, and he's finished in 2 minutes 39 seconds. A very good time indeed. Well behind McGee, but well in front of the oxygen mask. All that suggests that unless Capes performs tragically, he'll win the title. He needs to achieve a time faster than McGee's. John Paul himself is prepared for a final flourish. And in a sense, there's a personal duel going on here outside the title itself. The 25-year-old Icelander has become a great friend of Capes, but the Englishman will never forget how he lost his title and how some people automatically assumed he might be over the hill. He's not, and he's out now to prove it not only to others, but even perhaps more importantly to himself. Sigmarsson is increasing the gap, but it's a time, the individual time, that's most important. For Capes, 2 minutes. Trailing though he is, if he can get inside that, he's won the title. Capes is pacing himself as if his body clock is telling him that everything is on schedule. It's all now a very hard grind. And beautiful sands become a pestilence as the legs tire and the wobbles spread from the knees up through the body. But he has to be steady now and do nothing silly, like drop one of these pots. The frame remains upright. The last two pots for the Icelander. The final surge. And it's all over in 1 minute 41.1 seconds. Time for a last demonstration. Cascais might even ask him back as a tourist attraction. But the eyes are on Capes. Up with these last two pots. Look at the timekeeper. Has he done it?
The thing is not dead!
Yes! Would you believe it? 1 minute 57.9. He's come back. Second place enough. Title his again. The one he nearly loaned out for the year to the man who sportingly raises the arm of the new champion. So as the celebrations begin, confirmation of the last event. Comagee salvaging his pride with a hard-won third place, which acted as Jeff's target time. The proud Sigmarsson abdicating with typically final defiance. But how did he feel when he heard Jeff shout, "The is not dead"?
He was never dead, but I took his crown for 1 year, and I will be back for my crown, because I'm a Viking warrior. I will always be back.
Grizzly's not a Viking, but he'll be back because he likes being with the greats.
I think Jeff Capes is one of the greatest strongmen to ever live. You talk about durability, you talk about Jeff Capes. You talk about a man who has endured and who seems to get better with age, like a fine wine. It's Jeff Capes. The consummate professional. When I needed advice, I went to Jeff Capes. I went to John Paul. These men are great stars at this. I'm a great star in my business. I'm a great strongman, but I'm also learning. Jeff Capes is the Muhammad Ali of strongman.
I don't think you could put it any better, could you?
I couldn't put it no better.
So is this really the ultimate for Jeff?
How much longer do you want to keep on going in this particular event?
It's a good question. Obviously, like at the moment in time, I'm very tired, and until next year. But
Well,
I'll have a good long rest.
Well, there have been some suggestions that once winning this again, you've set your sights on it, that you would quit at the top. That old phrase.
Yeah, I quit at the top in athletics, and give me a couple of 3 weeks to think about it. I'm still not sure. Obviously, after winning it again, it's another year is another title. But
so what you're saying, coming up there, getting it in, winning the title again, has rekindled the enthusiasm.
Yes, it has. You know, it's like having a couple of years in the wilderness and coming back again.
All right, come on. If you could possibly give me an answer to it, will Jeff Capes be in this contest next year?
I don't know. He's afraid. Listen to him. Yes and no.
Jeff? Yes, that's all I wanted to hear. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lovely.
The final statistics. Capes, Sigmarsson and De Vroet. There wasn't much in it. Just aching joints, tired muscles, blistered hands, dented pride, soaring achievement. That's all. The late afternoon light is conveniently golden as Mr. Chu Geisen, Director, European Division, Daft Trucks, presents the trophy. The king and his courtiers are there. Jeff Capes still has one more lift to make, though. But when you're the world's strongest man, it comes easily.
Body language. Body language. Body language.